We inherit more than eye color, bone structure, or family stories. Many of us inherit silence, survival patterns, unspoken grief, beliefs we didn't consciously choose, but live inside of anyway. Across cultures, there's an ancient understanding that those who came before us don't simply disappear. They remain present as memory, pattern, as energy, as influence. So today's conversation isn't about convincing anyone of a spiritual belief, but it's about exploring a question that many people quietly feel but rarely say out loud. What if our ancestors are still in relationship with us? And what if that relationship isn't about control, fear, or obligation, but it's about healing, awareness, and liberation? Welcome back, listeners, to this episode, beautiful episode of Cosmic Confluence Podcast. I am your host, Sana, and here today we're also going to ask, the harder questions. Where does this idea that, help us heal? And where could it become a way to avoid responsibility or reality? And let me tell you a bit about my guest, Stacy Hernandez. Her healing journey began at birth and unfolded through addiction, abuse, parenting, illness, and deep spiritual initiation. She works with ancestral and multidimensional energy healing and supports others in dissolving inherited trauma and reclaiming sovereignty. So let's get on to it, listeners. And Tracy, welcome to Cosmic Confluence. And it's really an honor to have you here with us.
Wow, Sana, that introduction to just the ancestor, let's say ancestral healing at the beginning was powerful. Beautiful use of language and just like that I wanted to cry because that the way you described, oh gosh, when you said the word silence, it's like that really like hit. Thank you for that beautiful description of the kind of ancestral, um, let's say inheritance. What we forget that the lives we're living are just not only our own, right? That we've been inherited so much from our people. So thank you for that.
Thank you so much, Stacey. And I believe, I don't know. I mean, in the real world, people would still say, these things they don't matter. It's all in your destiny and it's you. But then, um, I believe, and through many conversations, also I've realized this that these are our ancestors. I mean, we are talking about relationships at a spiritual, at a physical, at social. I mean, so many levels. People talk about ancestral trauma, generational trauma, um, how maybe sometimes the trauma which could have been carried through generations gets passed on to us, and we feel this heaviness on our shoulders to either carry forward or to break out of that traumatic cycle or pattern, just to prove ourselves that irrespective of whatever trauma or maybe any kind of negative patterns that have been through our ancestors, we do not need to carry them, or we need to break that just to prove us our own worth. So I believe this is such an important topic and conversation, not from the point of discussing just the spiritual part here, but in the practical world as well.
Oh my gosh. And there's so many directions and layers to this and ways we can go into it. And yes, I love how this this doesn't have to be kind of just a path of suffering, let's say, that yes, we've inherited certain patterns and belief systems and structures and systems and conditionings, that have been passed down from generation to generation. And I believe we are on a path, especially now in these incredible times we're in, around really coming into our truth, who we truly are, our sovereignty. And part of that is in the removing of what is not ours. And a lot of that I have found, yes, there's different layers of that. There could be societal influences, political influences, religious influences, all through our just living in this daily world, as well as through what our ancestors have passed down. But in it's really interesting when you start to see how what we have inherited does impact our daily lives. And we don't really understand it until we really start to, like, tune into ourselves, question our patterns and our behaviors, and we really start to look into, "How? Where's this really coming from? Do I really have this relationship, let's say, with money? Or is this really mine? Because this doesn't feel like mine. I do all these things in this way, but I'm still bumping up against these things." And so that's when I really started to, I mean, I was gifted from my people, from watching my mother connect with the ancestors, and so I had this already, like, perspective, but I didn't necessarily use it in my daily life until I got older, until I was on my own path of, let's say, spiritual awakening, or just understanding who I am. And so then I started to notice, my gosh, my mom connects with the ancestors in daily life, having daily conversations and really kind of reflecting on what this means for her. So it's been a very interesting path. And I love how you put the positive piece in it too. Like, where we do focus more on, let's say, the negative stuff that we adopted. Oh, I got my temper from my father and my grandfather and whatever, or I got the scarcity mindset from X, Y, or Z that continues to get passed down. But there's also, like, I get my hope from my grandmother, and my grandmother got it from and that sort of thing. And we absolutely can apply this to our daily lives when we start to observe what is ours and what is not ours.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah.
So to begin with, first, I think it's a very important. It's kind of this, on cosmic confluence. I believe many of our conversations they beautifully bridge the gap between science and spirituality.
Mm,
So similarly, many people experience ancestral influence through psychology,
mm,
family systems, trauma patterns, conditioning, something that we just, kind of touched upon.
yeah,
When you say ancestors are communicating with us, I mean,
yeah.
I've heard stories where people have written down that, and they were, as kids, they were so closely connected with their grandparents. So,
Mhm,
or maybe specifically their grandfather, maybe maternal or paternal, but
mm,
grandfather, grandmother, and especially after they uh, after their death or they passed away, they felt that that their grandparents or grandfather, grandmother, they're just watching them as this guardian angel, like
mm,
protecting them. And those stories, they really kind of touched my heart because I feel that this is kind of not very much, very much touched down upon. I mean, more highlight is
mm.
given to the negative part here, especially when we talk about ancestral trauma or this generational trauma. So, my question to you is, Stacey, that what distinguishes that from inherited trauma or subconscious memory? When you say ancestors are communicating with us.
Yeah, I think so. Wow, there's so many beautiful pieces in this question that you brought forward. Wow, you're going deep. You're getting us to go deep. So, you know, for me, I have had to work with my relationship with discernment a lot, especially over the years, especially as I've been being called to go more and more into the ancestor stuff. And this
Mhm.
discernment is really determining what is, as you said, my psychological stuff and what has been gifted to me, what has been passed down or inherited. And a lot of that has to go into discernment. And for me, uh my practice is more intuitive now, where I can communicate with, let's say, my body and with my awareness to understand, okay, is this mine? Is this someone else's? Is this something that I inherited? What is this? And I get some, like, let's say, body communication. You may have heard more about muscle testing and things like
Mhm.
that, where for me, my body gives me a yes, like a sensation or a feeling that says, yes, this is your psychological stuff you're working through. This is your stuff that you kind of created in this lifetime or others or whatever you'd like to believe,
Mm,
and then or my body will tell me and contract and make it very clear, no, this is not yours. You're just expressing it because it was gifted to you and you're just expressing it as it is your own. So there's an intuitive part to it that
mm,
I have learned to connect with. And also, I've also learned about, like, okay, why am I acting this way? What is this behavior that I'm doing? And I've been able to, like, mentally have those conversations. Does this feel like mine? Does it not? But when I go into, like, the intuitive, let's say, body communication, that's where I really know, whoa, okay, this really is mine. And I'm blaming an old ancestor for this, or I'm blaming something externally outside of myself. Versus when I go into that communication inside, I'm, like, able to really discern. So that discernment, I think, shows up differently for everyone, but
mhm.
you'd be surprised how much the body communicates to us what we need to know.
Wow. Mm, that is interesting. That is interesting. And I really love this because you're not framing ancestors as voices telling us what to do, but more as this like intuition, this muscular information stored within our body that becomes visible when we slow down or when we just try to communicate with ourselves.
Yes, yes. And I'll tell you, the more I connect, my, like, kind of levels of awareness have expanded. So, yes, it's this muscular kind of communication. We know the book, The Body Keeps the Score. We know this in science. We know this in different levels of how, like, the body can help us communicate. And there is, let's say, a more woo-woo part of this as well, where for me, I do have dialogue with my ancestors in a way. They come in and give me some messages or some understanding, but it's not as like what we'd see in the movies or something. For me, it's a strong knowing, or I do maybe get some visuals at times and I get some clear messaging. But
Mhm.
this piece around what I was saying, like, oh, what you brought forward about your, let's say, the memories of your grandparents, the time you spent with them, and knowing that they're here with us and having that connection. I had a moment where my grandparents show up a lot for me. And it may be like I'm taking a walk or I'm in the shower. I'm in contemplation. I'm not in a space of, like, go, 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 do, do, do. I'm
Mhm.
in these spaces, these contemplation, quiet spaces, the silence piece. And all of a sudden, I'll have an awareness of my grandmother that comes forward. And my grandmother will come forward, and it could be looked at upon as, like, a thought. "Oh, grandma, I'm thinking of grandma, she comes in," right? For me, it started more as that, and it's become more of a communication. But when, let's say, a thought of grandma comes in, often I now have, let's say, a message that comes forward. So it's a thought of grandma coming in, I'm thinking fondly of her, maybe there's a memory that shows up from when I was a child. But then what will happen is all of a sudden these other thoughts rush in, these knowings rush in, and then it's like, "Oh, okay. So this is why she's coming in." And one moment, just to give a quick little example, I was dropping my husband off at the airport, like, 4 o'clock in the morning. It was something really, like, I forgot my phone. I said goodbye to him. I forgot my phone. I was like, I was gonna listen to a podcast or something, and I was like, "Oh, I guess I'm gonna be in silence on the drive home." And all of a sudden, my grandmother came in, my mother's mother came in, and what happened right before she came in, I dropped him off and I started crying, crying, crying. And this huge emotion came over me around panic. I got really scared and it was just like out of nowhere. And what started to come forward was this like, oh my gosh, like there was like scarcity that came forward, like all this stuff. And my grandmother then came in and she said to me, don't worry, it's gonna be okay. And then she reminded me of the struggles of my people and what they got through. Like, we've had these times before, and you'll get through them just like we did. And for me, it was like, it came in as more of a visual, like I saw her, which I've watched other people who've had similar experiences and not as woo woo as I'm saying, but they have had experiences where the knowledge of grandma has come forward and the memory of her and her strength and, what she's endured, and that has shifted the energy. That has shifted the emotion of, "Okay, I know I'm just feeling right now. We
Mm.
got this. Everything's gonna be okay."
Mm. I think that really, really makes it very clear. And especially, you gave an example because um, this is interesting. Like even skeptics acknowledge that, the body carries memory beyond the macro, whether someone calls this ancestral communication or nervous system intelligence. And the experience itself, it is real. It is
Yes.
real.
Yes. Yes, and so when you get these, let's say, thoughts or feelings of, say, special ancestors or people in your life, family members, see if you can go underneath that. See if there's other thoughts that come forward or certain feelings that come forward. Because you'd be surprised when, let's say, a memory pops up. I
Mm.
believe they pop up for a reason. I believe that there's a message in that. There's something in it that's helping to support us in some way.
Definitely, definitely. And
Mhm.
see, I don't know whether this question, I mean, I'm just kind of curious from my own personal lived experience that, sometimes,
Yeah.
dreams or this, not visions, I would say rather dreams. Um, you get flashes, maybe your grandparents, they are maybe in emotional distress or uh,
Yeah.
they may suffer or they may try to communicate something which they may not be able to say it clearly out loud. um what do you make sense of it? Like how do you make sense of it? Sometimes because I've felt that very rare, but it has happened maybe twice or thrice, but it has happened. And then um within that certain time period, a similar kind of situation has happened. The occurrence has happened where I had to be not spectator but an active person involved in that entire scenario.
Yes. Oh my gosh. So if you bring this to, as you said, dreams, like dream time, or let's say someone gets a visual just in like kind of the daily life stuff, where this is that thing I was talking about, that when we get these insights or these awarenesses or these visuals or these dreams, I believe they can come to us in our dreams for sure. I've seen it, I've witnessed it, I've experienced it. I've worked with a lot of clients that this has happened to, and it comes at pivotal moments in our lives. I've noticed where for you, they came into your dream time, there was a feeling or a knowing or an experience within that dream that awakened something within you that
Mm.
you knew was gonna come forward or be brought forward. So then you had an experience in your daily life that
Mm.
brought up the feeling or knowing that you had to act upon that came or opened, let's say the dream opened the door to, what you had to experience. And this is why I'm saying, like, when these memories come in or these visuals or thoughts or knowings of, let's say, an ancestor come forward, notice the subtleties because There's always like a reason why. And it could be because there was a feeling that your heart needed to have. Maybe there was a feeling of love that wanted to come forward that really settled you down in a way that you may not have understood. Maybe you were feeling defeated, maybe you're feeling dismissed, and a memory or an understanding or a knowing of an ancestor came forward, and then you felt their love, and that just kind of picked you back up. And you don't even know it, but it all just happened. As you said, when we slow down and we really start to tune into the subtleties, this is where you see things. And dream time really takes, let's say, the ego out of the way, right? It takes the linear time out of the way. It takes the stuff that we get really bogged down or focused on, and it moves that out of the way so we can really express and let's say those unconscious levels, to come forward. And so what a powerful experience you had, how that dream time connection really it was expressed in your, let's say, normal, regular, linear 3D life.
Yeah. Yes, it is.
It's powerful.
It is. It is powerful. Oh. And there's often this assumption in spiritual spaces that as I mentioned, like ancestors, they are benevolent guides, guardian angels. But then sometimes, some lineages include abusers, perpetrators, people who may have caused harm in some of the other way. Do you believe, Stacy, that all ancestors are allies of healing?
Wow, wonderful question. So what I'm seeing in the energies lately and how as we're moving into, let's say, this new paradigm, this new way of being, and this fire horse energy coming in soon is really kind of taking us forward. What I'm noticing more and more is that these dark energies are don't have a hold like they used to have on us. So that those kind of energies are we a lot of humans still feel we are in that, but I'm watching a lot of those things go away. I'm noticing the rise of more and more ancestors that are here as allies. They are here to help us heal. And
Mm.
yes, there are still dark energies around. And so discernment is that key piece. And when we can slow down and really listen and feel and trust our hearts, trust our intuition, we really do know when things are aligned and when things are not aligned. We just have to develop that vocabulary within ourselves because we know we'll have these insights that come forward or these feelings like don't go down that street, don't walk here, don't do this. Like we just kind of know stay away from this person. There's something that feels off with this person. We know these things, but we
Mm.
just don't practice them in our daily lives. We don't, bridge the, let's say, the intellect with the heart, with the intuitive inner voice. So, yes, I have, especially in the work I've done, I have really tracked some dark ancestors, some dark beings within. I've witnessed things come into lineages that have created, let's say, dark stuff. I do believe that we have lived many lifetimes ourselves where we've been the victims, we've been the perpetrators, we've experienced it all. And so there's part of that that's in there. And with the darker ancestors, I don't see it as much anymore, but there absolutely still is that presence within certain people, certain lineages for sure. Again, it's less and less. I'm just seeing less of it all the time. However, there is a lot of discernment that has to happen. I was just working with a client the other day where, oof, boy, was it dark in her lineage. And we're still seeing the ways that it's playing out in her life and her siblings' life and her parents' life today, and including one parent that really has chosen a very negative, dark space to live in. And so, we clear what we can, and then there's also that personal choice, right? Some
Mhm.
people wanna stay in these just not very enlightening places, you know?
Mm. Yeah.
Yeah.
And often, there's this, I don't know, sometimes this heaviness of, or this huge responsibility of breaking out of that cycle, or um, clearing that entire, because we are living in that society, and we may have to sometimes bear the consequences of probably the harm inflicted by our ancestors, or any kind of uh, dark or negative past attached with our ancestors. It kind of becomes, we assume, or maybe we kind of take it upon ourselves as this huge responsibility to justify that, yes, I am not like them, and
Yeah.
my actions won't be similar to what my ancestors have done. Oh, I think that can be very, very detrimental.
Yes, and what I've noticed in terms of, like, energy work, that you can clear out the charges of that. You
Mm.
can clear out the kinda stuck energy that holds us in place and allows it to, like, neutralize and clear, so then you can be more sovereign, and you don't have to feel the responsibility of your people, you know? That
Mm.
you can really come into a more, let's say, sovereign way, meaning less of the influence outside of yourself. You absolutely, that is the path. That is the way now. And and it does take layers of awareness to get there, and I find, yes, I've done the therapy piece. I've done like all the different modalities out there, whether it's talk therapy or whether it's, acupuncture, I mean, meditation, yoga, Ayurveda, all the things, to help support healing for sure. And I mean, shamanic work, all of the stuff. And what I've noticed is that we can really clear the energy of these things so we don't have to, we can be more sovereign. So let's say a grumpy ancestor that wants to stay, and let's say maybe that's still alive or maybe not even alive, but that
Mm.
energy kind of gets still passes down through the lineage and you witness it and experience it in some way in your life. We can kind of pull that ancestral energy out of you, and you can live more sovereign. You can live even if the ancestor is still choosing, let's say, that mindset, that behavior, that pattern. We can still clear it out of you if you have the yes to want to heal and liberate.
Mm. Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. Exactly. And I think this is very, very powerful because it reframes liberation as an act of love rather than rejection. Like, more choosing differently, it doesn't dishonor the lineage. It may be the very thing the lineage couldn't do. So it makes sense.
Yeah, and you know what? I mean, you just brought up a really, really, really important point. What I've noticed when I've done this ancestral work for these many years, that no matter what, often they come from love, right? And they know they are responding to their environment in the way that they had to, because
Mm.
there was probably a lot of stuff happening. They responded, and the way they responded was because coming into scarcity, coming into negativity, control, whatever the energy is, and often it really is they are expressing love. And for
Mm.
us and our releasing the responsibility of, let's say, whatever behavior or pattern the ancestors have passed down, that is the ultimate form of love. And what they are bringing forward is they want you liberating yourself, you clearing out these stuck, let's say, patterns from our ancestors liberates them.
Mm.
And it is an act. I mean, it is one of the most purest acts of love that we can do for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Before we conclude, let's give our listeners some hope here, because many of them would think that, okay, it all sounds meaningful, but then I don't see ancestors or work with energy. How can someone engage ancestral healing in a grounded, accessible way,
Yeah.
maybe without adopting beliefs that they wouldn't select with?
Yes. And I'm actually doing with this with my own children, and I have young adult children now. And how I am doing this more in that practical daily life is I'm sharing stories. I'm sharing stories about my grandparents, about my parents, about my aunts and uncles, about my great grandparents. I'm sharing the stories of not it being like, oh, this guy was a jerk or blah, blah, blah. What I'm doing is I'm saying, like, they went through this, and this is why our people are so strong. Or my grandmother used to do this, she used to sing this song, and the beauty that's coming out of sharing the stories and the memories of their strength, their endurance, their, those sort of pieces, and even when it is like, okay, grandma was always nagging us and everything, but I'm bringing humor to it. She did it because this is all she knew, Like, so I am finding the sharing of the stories, and we'll call my kids' grandmothers, we'll call my mother, we'll call my husband's mother, and we'll ask them to share stories. And, like, what was your mom like? What was it like growing up in this country or whatever? And that is bringing such heart-opening fondness, and it just is shifting the energy of what we get stuck in the suffering part. So that's a real just, like, practical thing, like, seeing the stories, listening, and going underneath those stories into knowing, wow, this is all they knew at the time, and they did this out of love, or they did this because they were so strong and they were protecting our people or whatever it is. So, that's what I would say is a great place to start.
Yeah, exactly. For sure, Stacy. And I appreciate because it brings this conversation back to lived experience. Something that we can connect and make sense of it. And instead of blaming or just bypassing anything, it just portrays the reality, but in a receptible way, or in something that we can take in
Yeah.
the lessons, take the good of it, leave the bad of it, and then maybe not move on, but just continue, or maybe explore in a better way.
Yes, I love that. You take the lessons. And when you do that, you know how much healing happens inside? You're not then holding the anger of, like, your grandpa who used to, yell at you when you were a kid. Like, there is a healing that happens when you really start to see them within their context, you know?
True.
Yeah.
Right. So, Stacey, before we wrap up, if listeners they're further curious to explore how you do the work in there, and if they have their own experiences of their thoughts to share with you, how they can reach out to you.
Yes. So the easiest way is I work with a collective of other healers called Light Body Academy, and you can go to lightbodyacademy.com and you can reach us there. We are Light Body Global Academy on Instagram, and you can find me, and I have lots of different videos and everything there.
Super. So, listeners, what I'm going to do is have all the links and details mentioned in the show notes. So, just refer to them, find them attached along with this episode on whichever platform you are listening to Cosmic Confluence right now. And I this is whether you believe ancestors are spirits or memories or patterns encoded in the body. The past is not gone, it is active. But then I believe the question isn't whether we're influenced by what came before us. The question is whether we stay unconscious to it or bring it into awareness. I mean, perhaps our ancestors don't need devotion or obedience. Maybe what they need is honesty. Honesty about what ends with us, honesty about what gets healed through us, and honesty about the truth we are finally willing to know. And Stacey, thank you so much because
Wow.
you really brought nuance, um, grounding, and depth to this conversation, which is very, very much needed. So thank you so
Mhm.
much.
Wow, what a beautiful way to end. You have a wonderful way with words, and it really tapped my heart with what you said at the end about honesty and truth. That was beautiful. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Stacey, and thank you to all the listeners. Thank you so much for tuning in to Cosmic Confluence. And I invite all of you to stay curious, stay sovereign, and remember that liberation doesn't erase the past, but it can definitely transform the future. Until next time, this is Cosmic Confluence. I'm Sana, and I'll catch you in the next episode. Thank you.